Framer X. Framer X is a tool for creating design and prototypes with real interactive components. My name is Eelco Lempsink. I'm the head of engineering at Framer. And I'm going to talk to you about a bit of the history of Framer and also how we built Framer and show off some things that you can do with it. So Framer didn't start out as an advanced design tool. It actually started out as an open source JavaScript library. So this is that library running in the browser. It was started by the founders of Framer, Koen Bok and Jorn van Dijk, when they were at Facebook working as product designers. And they noticed that being able to show off an interactive prototype on your phone that you could interact with, which was a much better way to sell your design than showing a slideshow of Sketch and Photoshop mockups. So this is how Framer was born, as an easy tool for designers to create prototypes. So after 2 years, they returned to Amsterdam from Facebook, and they start building a product around that library. So this is one of the very first iterations of that product. Very simple, code on the left, preview on the right. It didn't do much, but it already had, like, if you pay close attention, the code is CoffeeScript, so a CoffeeScript compiler in there that updated the web view on the right. So this product was called eventually Framer Studio, and over the years we kept adding features, building this out, and it actually was a product that taught a lot of designers how to code. A lot of products you know are designed using Framer. Also some products that everybody forgets, like Dropbox Carousel. I got this from our old website, actually. So to make coding easier for designers, we introduced features like autocode. So this meant that you, instead of typing all the code yourself, the preview was no longer just a static preview, but it was something where you could manipulate also the layers. We added like a big property panel in the middle where you could change the properties, and everything you did would actually write the code for you. So this was a way to get quicker into code. One thing you couldn't do yet with Framer, though, is build out a design really end-to-end. So you still started in Photoshop or Sketch to make your static designs and then make them interactive with Framer, added things on top, stuff like that. So to make the end-to-end experience better, we started working in 2016 on Framer design. So this is built with React and TypeScript. So here it already looks a lot like a design tool, but there's still the code side. So you can get your design into code, share projects, and set up all kinds of interactive things in code. So this was already a nice step, but it didn't really feel like the future yet. So this was a good way to get design into code, but there was no way yet to get code into design. And this is really similar to how still some designer-developer handoff works. A designer makes something, then gives it to the developer, but then it isn't done. Like when you start creating the code, lots of things will change to the design, and there should be a loop. So not only should the design come to code, the code should also be available in the design. And this is what we set out to build with Framer X. So let me give you a quick demo. Let's see, yes, perfect. So this is the welcome window. So this is Framer X today. If you've ever seen a design tool, it looks very familiar. So you can set up your screens. You can draw squares, which is the most important feature. If you can't draw squares, yeah, then you're stuck basically. You can add text. There we go, something like this, resize it a bit. And we even have a graphics tool in there. So if I do this, let's see, I can draw some nice ovals, change the fill to add some stroke, position things, and I can use this to really quickly draw a very shitty React logo. Let's see. Oh, 20. Now a nice thing in the middle, right? Where's the middle? Perfect. We also have things like a color picker, which works on a complete screen. So this is still, even though this is web technology, it's still very much a native app. So this is the design part. There's also still a code part, so to attach some behavior to this, I can do something like this. I pull up the live preview. This is the live preview, and now when I tap the logo, I get some rotation. So just the basics. So let me prove to you that this is all web technology, and pull up an inspector, and you can see in the elements. So this is, there we go. Wait, this one is nicer. We have the canvas with all the elements on there, like the elements I just draw, and even the drawings that I just made. They show up as SVGs in the, well, this is really tiny, but they show up as SVGs in the code. So what this allowed us to do is what I said, also bring the code into the design. So I can create very quickly, let me show you a code component, create one, it will open, see this is nice and big, it will open VS Code. And this is like the demo component we throw in there. This is just HTML, very simple to get started. But it's this code running in the design tool. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. And I'm gonna, well, as a quick aside, now is as good a time as any to say we're hiring. We're always hiring. We're looking for great people. We already have a whole bunch of awesome people. Some of you are here tonight. You can recognize them by the Framer logo on their shirts probably. So talk to them or to me if you want to work at Framer. But let's get back to the program. So this is something that's probably familiar to you. You've seen this before. If you don't recognize this, this is flux. So this is the pattern about data flow going in one direction. And the React part here is the view. Flux was invented before React, actually. If you're more familiar with Redux, you can scratch out dispatcher and replace it with reducer, which is like a totally different thing, but the diagram still is the same. And the point is the data flows in one direction. So this is what we used. Also in Framer design already. So we used very vanilla Flux for the dispatcher and the store, and we used immutable.js for our data. So our data that you see on the canvas, all the objects and the hierarchy, we called it the canvas tree, and we used immutable.js for it. Hard word. And this is a great library, and it really helped us ensure that we didn't make any mistakes when doing complex manipulations. The view, powered by React, is the canvas, and somehow we thought it was also a good idea to make the tools into React components. So this is what we did for Framer design. So this is one of the things we came to regret. Like, it was very nice, like, React, everything is a component. This is a very simple model, very simple to reason about, all the tests works the same. But how the tools worked wasn't that great. Like, a lot of logic and a lot of heaviness went into the shoot component did update, and it got like the mouse position, and it had to check, did now the mouse position change, or did the data change, and should I continue updating? It was a mess, basically. So this was crazy. Another thing, immutable.js, it's an amazing library, but for many manipulations, when doing many manipulations at the same time, it gets quite slow, especially if you just compare it to plain old objects. It's actually quite a bit slower, and this also became a problem for us. So this is something that we needed to change. And what this is, when we take a step back, this is a state management problem. So we have a very specific state in our app, and we need a way to manage this. And luckily, in React, state is like a very simple concept. So there are only 3 things that can cause an update in React, and only 3 ways that the state will change. And this is a very important thing to keep in mind also when you're looking at different state libraries that will help you with managing state. I think a good question to ask always is, where is the set state? So somewhere in the library, somewhere in Flux or MobX or Redux, whatever, there is a set state call or a for substate call that will cause your React components to re-render. And understanding where that point is key to understanding how the library works. And similarly, if you want to build your own state management solution, where do you put the set state? So this is what we came up with. This is what we currently have. We have something called an engine. It still has the data flowing only in one direction. And it has 6 states. It starts idle, like an engine idling. And it can move to the event handling state when an event happens. There's tool processing and post-processing which do all the mutations. So there's still only one part in which the data is mutated. In all the other parts, there are no mutations going on, and the canvas tree is completely immutable. But this is also a custom solution. So for the event handling, that's actually the only state that can happen multiple times. So for instance, if you move a mouse really fast, there might be multiple mouse movements that have happened before the tool processing gets its chance to kick off. And we make sure in the event handling state that all those events are processed and no tool processing has been done. So we only use the latest mouse position and then start the tool processing. And this saves a lot of rendering because the set state in this solution actually happens in the event handling. So when the event handling kicks off, we set a state on a top level object where we increase an update counter, and it will cause the whole app to re-render, but only once. So we set the state, and then the tool processing will still kick off in the shoot component update, but only once. So this will happen. The post-processing will make sure all the data is correct and do some other things. And then we have a single render in the application. We have one more funny state, which is called wait frame, and this is basically, there's like a micro task that we use. And after that, we are really sure that the browser has given control back, all the rendering is done, and the engine moves back to the idle state. So, as I said, this is of course really custom. I don't know if this to any help to your daily state management problems, but I hope it gave you some insight in what we do and maybe some inspiration if you need to build something custom. Okay, so let's move from the internals of FramerX to a bit more of the externals. So this is an API we added to React components when you use them in FramerX, and we call it property controls. It looks maybe a bit like prop types, which you know, but prop types are more for type checking and safety, things like that. And property controls are explicitly about adding UI to your properties. So this UI will show up in Framer. The code you see on the slide is TypeScript, which we use. Same works if you just want to use plain old ES6. You just have to use strings for the types. There are many different control types, and I can go through all of them, but I think it's much nicer just to show you. There we are. Okay, so to demonstrate this, I'm gonna go to something else that's quite unique to FramerX, which is the store. So the store is where you can browse for all kinds of components for FramerX and install them in your project. And you can also, there's a nice publish button, you can also publish your own components to the store. So in this case, to demonstrate the properties, I'm gonna search for the properties component made by a colleague of mine, install this in my project. There we go. I want to show it. Okay, so now I'm in the components panel again. I have this, which I can drag out. There we go. So now I have a small component. And here on the right side, I have all my properties. This doesn't work nicely. All my properties, like the title, which I can change here. A color, which can be changed. And even an image picker. So I'm grabbing some unsplash image. See, oh, it's a bit weird, but anyway. So this is an image which now will be managed also by Framer. So you can add this to your component, and inside your component you will get the URL where it is. It will clean up images that are unused, and the same with files, lists, etc., etc. Okay, so this is all nice, I think, but let's try to build our own component now. So this is the third demo. And I'm gonna make something using existing React components. I don't want to start from scratch, but I want to make a chart component. So let's do that. Let's remove this. Already, okay, yeah. So let's make a chart component. There we go. Okay. So I get now the component code again. And for this, I want to use the existing React components, as I said, so I'm going to open a shell. What happened to this font? I don't know. Okay, and what you see here now, so now I'm in the code directory, but this is the Framer project directory, and what you see here might look familiar, like you have a package.json and then yarn.log, and as you can see, this is really like any other JavaScript project powering this all, and actually I can use yarn here also. So I'm gonna add recharge, which is nice. And there we go. And I'm gonna also add the types, because I like types for recharge. There we go, and now I have it installed, and I can start creating my components. So let's clean up this. We're gonna make a very simple chart at first. Like for the data, we're just gonna use a list of numbers. And also we want a width and a height, of course, because the chart will have a width and a height. Okay, we have a class. Some default data would be nice also. Perfect. And now we can create some property controls for the data. So this is something we launched very recently. So the control type array, which will allow me to do an array of items just for the data. And now let's do it like this. I have subcontrol type, property control, property control. I'm typing very sloppily, as you can see, because I'm so used to Prettier cleaning up my mess that I don't even bother anymore. So this will be a number. Perfect, and it's cleaned up. There we go. And now we're gonna make a line chart. This one. So you see, this is like, I have the types and everything installed, right? So VS Code will automatically import it as I type the things that I need, like an x-axis and a y-axis and a line. There we go. And now we're gonna use our props. Oops. Like the width and the height and the data from the props. This is always very boring. Right, and the data I want to manipulate a bit to get like also an x value, which I'll just use the index for this. let's say chart data is map, so I get the y, and the index is, I use as the x, x and y, perfect, go away. And that's what I use for the data, chart data. And now for the x-axis, I want to use the x, and then the line, I want to use the y. There we go. Okay, let's see if it works. Actually, oh, an error. Oh no, there we go. So it's been compiled, and I have a chart in Framer X. So now I can use the property controls because I set this up for data, so I can add more data points, change the data points right in the UI, move them around, disable them. I actually want a slightly nicer line type. So if I make a change here and save it, it will be compiled, reloaded. There we go. Now we have this nice line type. Let's make it a bit, let's give the designers a bit of control, right? So a color would be nice. So for the color, some nice blue default. And a control for it. So for the color, the type, so this, I want to be a color, and this is the line color. And I want to use this, so get this from the props color and use it for both the stroke of the line and also the fill of the little dots on the line. Same color. And there we go. Nice line, nice color, and now I can use the color picker to change the color of the line, and it will update automatically. So that's a very quick and short demo. A very quick demo how you can do this. I used npm. This also means if I publish this component to the store, like the recharge will just be a dependency of my package. So it will grab that from npm when you install it. It all works like everything you know. I think what we're building on right here with Framer is the foundation of a new way for design and development to work together in a way that code and design can blend and go in both directions now. So if you also find this exciting, we're hiring. But mostly check out Framer at framer.com. I'm on Twitter at Eelco, and you can ask me anything during the beers and the breaks. Thank you.